So here's a wild thought. What if everything you see around you, every single person, every tree, every star in the sky, what if it all came from one single unified source? It's a huge idea, right? It's called the Universal Law of Oneness. And today, we're going to dive into it, using a really fascinating monologue from Rodney as our guide. Let's get into it. Now, to get our heads around an idea this big, you might think we'd start with some dense, ancient philosophy. But nope, we're actually going to start with something much more familiar, a true biological marvel that shows us how two can, literally, come from one. And that really brings us to the core question, doesn't it? How can two separate, individual people actually be one? This isn't just some riddle to ponder. It's a real question that biology answers for us every day with identical twins. And believe it or not, this is our doorway into a much, much bigger idea. Okay, the process itself is just a miracle, really. It all kicks off with one single fertilized egg. That's the origin point. Then that one cell splits, creating two identical embryos. So from that one single source, you get two totally unique individuals who are walking around, living their lives, but sharing the exact same fundamental blueprint. It's a perfect real-world example of a single one becoming many. And this, right here, is the paradox that's so fascinating. At their very core, identical twins are one. They come from the same origin, the same initial spark. But out here, in the worlds, they are two. Each one has their own soul, their own unique personality, their own path in life. This idea of being both singular and multiple at the exact same time, that's the key. You gotta hang on to that because it unlocks this whole concept. All right, so we've got our biological blueprint. We see how it works on a small scale. Now, what happens if we take that exact same principle, one becoming many, and we just zoom out? What if we apply it not just to a single cell, but to, well, everything? I mean, just let that sink in for a second. We have concrete biological proof that a single source can split and create two distinct, yet forever connected individuals. It's not magic, it's not philosophy, it's just a fundamental process of nature. And if it can happen here, then what if it happens everywhere? This is the massive idea that Josephson is putting on the table. The way twins are made isn't some biological fluke. It's actually a small-scale model for how the entire universe works. The story of one cell becoming two people is just a metaphor for the story of the one becoming everything. And that, my friends, is the whole shebang. That's the universal law of oneness. Now that we have this really tangible, easy-to-understand metaphor of twins to hold on to, we can start to really explore what this law means on a truly cosmic scale. So, this ultimate source has a name. In Gnostic philosophy, they call it the monad. Just think of it as the ultimate origin point. It's the one divine source from which every single thing in the universe, every star, every blade of grass, me, you, everything comes from. But how do you even begin to describe the source of everything? Well, it's a total paradox. It is the all, this incredible, vibrant explosion of every possible thing that could ever exist. But it's also the nothing, that quiet, empty space at the center where it all springs from. You could call it the one God, or say that all is mind. Ultimately, it's just beyond our words. It simply is. And this is super important. We have to remember how Josephson presents these ideas. He's not preaching. He's not saying this is the absolute truth. In fact, he says, I don't know if this is true or not, but let's figure it out. It's an invitation, right? It's an invitation to explore an idea together, not a command to believe it. Okay, so if this idea of oneness is really a universal law, you'd expect to find little hints of it, echoes of it, all over the place, right? Well, according to Josephson, if you start looking, you'll see those echoes everywhere. For instance, take a simple garden. Josephson sees this silent, peaceful connection between all the plants, a kind of shared knowing. This same idea pops up in the philosophy of Neville Goddard, who famously said that every single person you meet is just another version of yourself pushed out. It all points back to this beautiful concept of a single divine spark. Imagine one huge eternal fire lighting countless individual candles. Each flame is unique, right? But they all came from the very same source. This brings us to a really practical and, honestly, a very important question. If this is all true, if we are all fundamentally connected, just different expressions of the exact same thing, then what does that mean for how we're supposed to live? How should we treat each other? And this is where all that cosmic philosophy gets really personal. Check out how two totally different thinkers from different times and places basically arrive at the same conclusion. Confucius warns that if you seek revenge on your neighbor, you'd better dig two graves. Why? Because harming them is harming yourself. And Jesus puts it even more simply. Love thy neighbor. Well, of course, if your neighbor is you, then love is the only response that makes any sense. So we've gone on quite a journey. We started with biology, flew out to the cosmos, and came all the way back down to human ethics. But what's the bottom line? What's the real takeaway from this grand idea of oneness for you and me, right here, right now? For Rodney Josephson, it all comes down to this one simple, beautiful moment of awareness. He ends his whole monologue by just grounding himself completely in the present. He says, alive, dwelling in the garden, Saigon. It's now. All of that massive cosmic theory, and it lands in this simple, peaceful act of just being, connected to everything in this very moment. So we'll leave you with this to chew on. What if it's actually true? If every person you meet, every plant in the garden, every spark of life is just the same one source, looking out at the world through a different set of eyes, how does that change the way you see the world? How does that change everything?